Hey, everybody, and welcome to the semifinals of the Premodern Showdown series. I am Michael Hoyp. I'm joined tonight with Flint Espel. Say hi, Flint.
Hey everybody.
And we have an exciting night of magic for all you pre-modern folks. We have built up over the last 7 weeks. We have 8 players, and now we're down to 4. And at the end of tonight, we will have 2 standing. And then on Wednesday, we will crown our champion for the first pre-modern showdown series. All right, so tonight we are starting off with Ron against Robin. So Ron was our first seed from the pod play, and he is not lost yet. He went 7-0-1. And then Robin is our fourth seed, and he snuck in. He had quite the road to get here, but he won at the very last moment on the last day last week. So his 3-4 record was enough to get him into the fourth place. And then Patrick and Michael are the second and third seed, and they both had a record of 4-3. So we're gonna jump over to the decks of Ron and Robin, and if those who are here have been following along, you're probably pretty familiar with those decks. So we're just kind of gonna gloss over them. The Landstill deck from Ron is our classic blue-white archetype. If you're been playing pre-modern for a while, you've probably played either with or against this deck. It's very powerful, consistent, and pretty popular amongst a lot of the spikier players. The Reanimator deck is one of Ron's children. This version has a Worldly Tutor package, so there are a number of one-of creatures that are kind of exciting that might not normally get play with I still can't remember if it's Petrodon or Pterodon. I think it's Petrodon. Is that right?
It's Petrodon.
Petrodon.
Yeah.
So he gets a main deck inclusion thanks to Worldly Tutor. But then you see a main deck Multani and then Visara. Then some of the standard go-tos with Phantom Neshoba and Akroma. And then Stasis, the lovely mono blue control deck. So it's got a lot of counter spells, some bounce spells that'll either bounce your opponent's cards or even your own stasis. And stasis keeps your opponent and yourself from untapping. But the deck is designed to kind of work around that. And it will eventually just kill the opponent with Black Vice as the cards get trapped in their hand. All right, so now let's jump over to Robin's decks. Flint, you want to talk about the full English breakfast that Robin has available to him?
Absolutely. And again, we've talked about it a few times now. But the deck looks to get some quick mana out with Llanowar Elves or Birds of Paradise, get a survival of the fittest on the battlefield as fast as possible, and eventually get a Volrath Shapeshifter into play and take advantage of the top card of that library to either use Phyrexian Devourer and Triskelion to do infinite damage, or to attack in, via an Akroma or another evasive creature, and then to switch the top card into a Phage the Untouchable, and whenever Phage deals combat damage, the opponent loses the game. Robin's got a couple tweaks here that maybe you may not have seen in these decks. So he's running one Limdul's Vault. He's also running one Diabolic Intent in order to smooth out his draws a little bit. And he's also running one Unearth as well. So a little different than some of the decks that we've seen online. And he's had some success with it, right? Didn't he win one of the matches?
I believe so.
Yeah.
I'm
If they
not
all blend
100%.
together.
Yes. Um, yeah. Okay, so his second deck is the Rock.
The Rock of the format, really a deck that was given a hard time in Extended, but is actually quite powerful in Pre-Modern. Green Black has answers on a lot of different levels. He's got Disruption via discard spells. He's got Pernicious Deed, which is an incredible removal spell in this format, and then he can go aggro pretty quickly with Blastoderms and Ravenous Balos, which double as protection against the Slide X. And then some mana rocks and some other fringe cards like Death Bowl and Vendetta. And then, of course, in the long game, he can use Recurring Nightmare to start to bring lots of beasts back into play, and maybe even a Deranged Hermit.
And his last deck is the Zombies deck.
The Brains deck This deck destroyed me a couple months ago. It can have very, very fast draws if opponents can't interact with it via fast creatures, and then of course, Shepherd of Rot causes you to lose a lot of life on top of cycling the um, Gem Palm Polluter. So the opponent can lose a lot of life very quickly if it's not kept in check. And then he uses the Lord of the Undead and the Rotling Reanimator to go wide against removal and other creature strategies.
Okay, so we'll jump over to the bands. So, given that these players have played before, I know last time the matchup, Robin had selected the Zombies deck and Ron played Reanimator. I don't recall which decks were banned, but
Stasis and Full English Breakfast were banned last time.
okay. So, the way that the matchup kind of played out was uh, Ron was able to sneak in a reanimation spell under a Withered Wretch, I believe, that Robin didn't have mana available, and then Ron was able
Yep.
to, I don't know if it was exhume, animate dead, or reanimate a large creature that went unanswered. I believe it was a Vasara. I think I don't know if it went to 3 games. Maybe Robin took one, but I know in one of the Cyborg games, Oath of Druids came down, and with Robin having primarily creatures is the way he's going to win, struggled after that Oath hit play.
It did go to 3 games.
Okay, so given that we have a little bit of history, do you think that the players are likely to ban different decks this time around?
It's a good question. I think that Robin may ban a different deck. Um, I think Full English Breakfast is very good against Ron's decks, with maybe the exception of Reanimator. But I think it can get in under the Landstill deck. Maybe not the Stasis deck if Ron has a really good counter draw. But I think Robin just automatically banned Stasis last time because he hates Stasis. But after losing to Reanimator, I almost wonder if he might choose a deck other than Stasis. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I think he obviously understood that once the reanimation plan like comes online, like once it gets the creature in play, then he has a lot of difficulty. But having main deck Withered Wretch and then also having Duresses and a couple Cabal therapies could put up a resistance against the Reanimator deck. But I don't know. It to me with the Oath of Druid sideboard plan, it just seems like there's a few angles of attack that are pretty difficult for Robin to deal with. Like a lot has to go right because he has to have both Graveyard Hate for the reanimation package, but then he also needs to have the discard spell at the right time for Oath of Druids. I might be thinking if I'm Robin that I might think twice and ban the reanimator deck this time around.
That's kind of what I was thinking, and
Mm.
just hearing Robin's thoughts after the match last time, and moving forward, I think he's going to feel real bad if Ron beats him with it again. So
Mm-hmm.
I think I'm with you. I think he may ban the Reanimator deck.
Do you think Ron changes anything?
I don't know. I mean, I don't think he's that afraid of the zombie deck if he's running Reanimator, like we said, or Landstill. Stasis, if you have the right cards, you can have enough answers early on to eventually drop a stasis with tap creatures on the board. So I'm not sure if he fears zombies that much. But like I said, Full English Breakfast just kind of has that win out of nowhere, wait for the right moment, and also can get things down pretty quickly. I mean, if Robin can get a survival down quickly, I think that Ron's pretty scared of that, regardless of what he's playing.
Mm-hmm.
So I I think that was what I thought he was going to ban last time, or maybe I was just on that Stasis hate train. But that to me that seems like Robin's most powerful deck against him.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. So let's jump over to our match and figure out what they are actually playing.
Okay,
You can
I
let
will
them know.
message them.
So Ron, as the higher seed, gets to choose to play or draw. He has chosen to play first. Uh, do you think that changes anything of like which deck you pick? Are you less likely to pick the zombies deck knowing that you are going to be on the draw guaranteed?
Ooh, I don't know. That's a good question.
I mean, I think so. I mean, a little bit. I like the Rock doesn't. I don't feel like really cares if it's on the player draw that much, but I feel like the zombies deck might. But given that there's a dark ritual off a
It
swamp.
looks like it's zombies.
Yes, the zombies, and I think that island is a blue white landstill island, but I don't remember. I don't know if they're the same or if he had different ones between those.
Oh, I always just see Ron play Island, and I'm like, yep, stasis.
All right, so let me jump into my editor and update the names, at least for Robin for the time being.
There's a Forsaken City.
Okay, so we
Yeah.
have zombies against the stasis. So one interaction to look out against the stasis, because the stasis deck has a lot of counter spells, but one thing that the zombies deck has available to it is the Gem Palm Polluter. And when you cycle that, it's not casting a spell, it's just going to have the ability. So Ron might be at a decent amount of life, but if Robin has enough zombies in play and he builds up to 2 mana, he might be cycling Gem Palm Polluter, which might be a difficult card for Ron to respond to.
Yep. So here we see an Arcane Denial on a Withered Wretch.
So the first turn for Ron was Dark Ritual into Sarcomancy and Shepherd of Rot.
Yes.
So okay. So do you think if you have both Withered Wretch and Gem or a Shepherd of Rot, which one would you lead with? Like which one would you prefer? If you play the Sarcomancy that resolves, which of the other ones would you play first? The 2/2 or the 1/1?
I'm sorry, I was reading chat.
Oh, I was just saying I don't know if Robin had the choice of casting Withered Wretch over Shepherd of Rot, but if you did have the choice, would you be prioritizing one over the other?
I'd probably play the Shepherd.
I think I'd play the Withered Wretch. I mean, because I guess it's going to be 2 damage at least. I guess it makes sense to do this.
Yeah, it's at least 2 right now, and then it could be more in the future.
And it's not like Robin's life total is under pressure. So where are we at for life totals?
It looks like
Ron's at 16.
Ron's at 16 and Robin's at 18.
Okay. I'll bring up the Shepherd of Rot since
Such a powerful card.
probably not a card that everyone has played against. And we see Robin has a Carnifage that gets added, but also he has a Wasteland, which is actually pretty important against for the Stasis deck because of Forsaken City, especially since Ron has played a Forsaken City right now. So it is at this point. I'm assuming Ron does not have other lands in his hand, but you don't even necessarily need to use it now because the trigger will go on the stack, and if Ron were to untap it, then Robin will get priority before the draw step, and he'd be able to blow it up. So it's definitely a tricky card for Ron to do anything against a Wasteland. Okay, so a life was paid. Oh, it should have been. I don't know if they announced it for the Carnivate. Oh, this is end of turn. Okay. End of turn, he's activating the Shepherd Rot for. It would have been for 3, but a Chain of Vapor is going to bounce the zombie token. So it's only going to be 2. Ron has at 12 to that. I'm missing something. All right. Well. Okay, so Robin pays a life to keep the Carnifage untapped.
Duress. Stasis, 2 Gush, an Arcane Denial, a Daze, and was that a foil?
Yes.
Oh.
Well, I mean, you already have a decent amount of pressure at this point, but it's kind of like, I don't think you take the Stasis. Well, I'm trying to think. I guess he needs to draw an island because there's no way he can play Stasis without drawing another land right here because of the Wasteland. But I don't.
No, I think I take Stasis.
I guess I guess the other cards don't do anything right now. Like,
Yeah.
because if you have other spells, yeah, I guess that makes sense. Yep. Because I mean, at this point, if you take the stasis, all the other cards are just reactive or card draw spells, and you pretty much have a clock in play. So, I think Robin's in pretty good shape from this position.
So Ron just really needs an island, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to think if there are any other cards that are reasonable for him to draw, but I think Island is his best one.
So he's down to 10.
And we do see
And
the Gem Palm Polluter.
interesting, he's cycling it now. I mean, I guess maybe he just doesn't have anything else to do. I don't know how many cards he has in his hand.
It could be if he needs to try and hit another land drop. I don't know exactly what turn we're on, but other than that, you're playing around like Chain of Vapor, bouncing another zombie. But yeah,
Wow, that wasteland is so good too.
yes, it's very good against that Forsaken City.
So he's thinking about passing the turn or not, or I don't know. He's just gonna shepherd now. That's fair.
Okay, so Ron will go to 8, and Robin will go to 13.
Skips him up.
All right. So, the first game goes to Robin. That was kind of a convincing fashion, too. I mean, I guess
Yeah.
Ron didn't have his land drops, so I mean, I guess. But, I mean, I think we can expect a lot of the games to go where Robin is going to put some pressure on pretty early. And then it's really going to come down to whether Ron can have a position where he can cast Stasis. All right, let's move over to the sideboards and see if things change after our first game. So I have the zombies deck up right now.
Okay.
Tormod's Crypt doesn't seem to be that good. Cabal Therapy I can see bringing in. Null Rod, I'm trying to think. I don't know how many powder kegs there are, but other than that, I don't think it does anything against Ron. Engineered Plague doesn't do anything. Bottle Gnomes is not a card to bring in. Perish, obviously not. Oath of Ghouls is a card that probably I would bring in. I mean, I guess it's appealing in the sense of Ron doesn't have any creatures in his list, so you're always going to have more creatures in your graveyard.
Yeah, and well, I mean, is he gonna kill a lot of?
They're
Robin's
going to
creatures?
get countered.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, I think you could bring in. What would you board out for it? So if you're gonna board in 2 Cabal Therapy and
Probably a Rotlung Reanimator.
okay, yeah,
That just there's not going to be cards that are dying very often. I think Powder Keg is really the only reason why they would. If that seems like the worst card is Rotlung Reanimator. I don't know if you take out 3 of those to bring in 2 Cabal Therapy, and also, I mean, it's kind of awkward because it's like Cabal Therapy probably works best with the Rotlung Reanimator,
yeah,
but not that it's like bad otherwise. I mean, I can see certain situations where there's like a stasis in play and you need to flashback,
Cabal Therapy.
yeah, just so you can resolve a different spell.
Chat's saying Tombstone Stairwell seems risky at 4 mana.
Um, well,
It's
I mean,
good if all of your creatures have been getting countered for the whole game, and then you have a window to land it.
yeah, I mean, I guess like it's bad against stasis,
Yeah, well,
is I guess the
it's-
idea,
yeah.
but I don't know. It just seems like a card. There's not really any risk to having it that much because it's not like Ron has any creatures in his deck. So I don't know. I feel like I mean, I could see maybe bringing it out, but I guess
I'm gonna say he boards out 1 Carrion Feeder, 1 Rotlung, and 1 Tombstone Stairwell.
well, the Carrion Feeder actually is pretty interesting because that could be a card where if it comes down later, like after a stasis, your tapped creatures, like give a little bit of boost to the one drop that you play. So I don't think I would take out the Carrion Feeder. I don't know.
Okay. All right.
It seems like a card that's reasonable against Stasis, but what changes for Ron? So is Curse Totem a card you're bringing in? So it's good. It's decent against Shepherd or Rot. Withered Wretch like isn't a card you really care about in terms of that ability. Lord of the Undead, maybe. The Anthem effect still applies. Are there any other? I mean, Carrion Feeder has an activated ability.
I mean, he doesn't really have anything else, does he?
I don't know if you ever bring in
Not
like I don't know when you bring in that Morphling. So, but
against their control decks.
sure.
Yeah, I think it's the Curse Totem is probably what he goes with. It's just
And it's not even like great. I'm like I'm not that excited about bringing that in.
yeah,
Yeah,
just like
you could
weak.
bring in Stifle, yeah,
Yep,
as a way to if you do have the game locked up other than the Gem Pump Polluter, that is a wheel to deal with it in the post board games. All
it's a
right,
fair point.
I think they might be ready. So if you want to let them know that they can get going.
I will do so.
So do you think Ron's nervous now? Would it feel bad? I mean, like he's had such a commanding performance the whole time, and now for him to make a quick exit in the semifinals would be a little unfortunate for him. But
I don't think he's nervous. I think he's probably just bummed about his land
sure,
draws. He's pretty like even killed.
yeah.
Um, Commanding start. There's the ritual. So Ron probably foils this or dazes.
Looks like Days is what he chooses.
Yep. Watch Robin play a second Dark Ritual here.
There you go. So Dark
Problem
Ritual
is,
into Duress. So
okay, got it.
I mean, Ron's hand is okay. So it's two thwarts, a gush, and a chain of vapor. I think I would take the chain of vapor here. I mean, I think the idea is that you're going to want to get the cards down first, and all the other cards need to pick up islands to do anything.
So Ryan just relentless in chat here, talking smack about Ron's land choice. Looks like he's taking. Is he still thinking? Did Ron's screen freeze up?
uh, I don't. Nope. The chain of vapor. Okay, that makes sense to me. I think that is the correct choice.
And did you say those are two thwarts, right?
Yes.
There's the oath. And there's the Carnivage. Okay. Problem is he has two Dark Rituals and a Duress in his graveyard and no creatures.
Yes.
So some people are saying Gush. I think I probably would have taken Gush as well, but I don't know if that's correct.
I mean, what are you afraid of? Like, are you afraid of him like going gush right
Just
away,
just
or
drawn into a stasis with that Forsaken City in his hand.
yeah, I don't know. I mean, Chain of Vapor kind of does the same thing. It could bounce your stasis. But all right, so these life totals are changing. We missed
Yep.
one attack, so Lord of the Undead has come down.
Runs at 12.
Yeah, this has been a quick beatdown by the zombie deck. Because like we talked about the cards, there's not that many cards that deal with creatures. It's like Chain of Vapor and Stasis once they're in play. Most of Ron's reaction is based off of counter spells.
So Ron's going to take a point there. Mike Harris says, I think Chain was the right choice. Doesn't want to be slowed down. Okay. I mean, it seems to be working pretty well. Ron's at 7. Could play a Wasteland. We're going to see a Stifle here. Yep.
Okay.
One less Stifle for Polluter.
Okay, so
There's
here
Josh.
2 minutes floating, so I think he's just ideally he has a stasis from this point, but there's still 4 mana available. All right, impulse.
Impulse.
Plays an island,
Are we gonna see
and
a stasis?
I don't think so.
No.
Just from body language, there's still another turn, but then things do get tricky because then every threat is a problem. All right,
Yeah, Ron's at 2. This is scary territory.
and a withered wretch is gonna be foiled. Yeah, I mean, Ron's pretty much obliged to counter every spell, but then it's like this is gonna be happening every turn because of the oath of ghouls. Yep.
Oh,
So
he scoops it up. Oh my goodness. Zombies takes it down.
yeah. All right. Well, that was quick and efficient from the zombies deck. What they got done. Zip
Oh
zap
man.
zop. Let's jump over to them to see what they're talking about. And we'll unmute them, and then we can maybe get a little bit of chatting.
Hey guys.
Hello. Hello.
Hi there. So that was quick and brutal.
Yes, it was.
So let's talk about bans. So the last time you guys played, the zombie deck went up against the reanimator deck. Was there a change of plans in terms of banning, or
Yes.
okay?
Because as I told Ron the moment we started playing that match, and as I told my friends about 10 minutes after I said what the bannings were to Patrick, was I banned the wrong shit. I just didn't want to play against Stasis, but then I realized, like, I love playing zombies versus blue-white, so how different can it be playing it versus Stasis? And Reanimator is just... Feb is... I don't know what's my best Reanimator matchup. Probably Feb. And I kind of felt like he was going to ban it, and he did, so... yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of what we had talked about. Is that's probably your most powerful deck, you know, across the board.
Yeah. I agree.
What was the sideboarding choices that you guys made? We weren't exactly sure. I think we knew what cards you wanted to bring in, but we weren't sure what you wanted to take out.
Start with Ron, because I'm curious myself.
I brought in 2 stifles and 2 curse totems. Took out 2 powder kegs, an impulse, and a boomerang.
Okay.
I wanted the stifles against wastelands, against the
Jump home polluter.
Gem-Palm Polluter trigger, against the activation of a Shepherd of Rot. So there were a lot of things that I wanted to stifle against.
When you stifled that, I realized myself, because I looked at the cyber, I was like, I don't really know what it's gonna do. But when you stifled my wasteland, I was like, oh shit, under a stasis, that's very good versus my shepherds, which I considered to be like, oh, they're trumps, right? Just play a shepherd and they'll deal a ton. I wasn't ready for it, but that's super smart. Yeah, I just brought in 2 Cabal Therapy and an Oath. The idea behind the Oath that you saw is just if I can sneak it in early, just
Sure.
like versus blue-white, it means his counters are just all they do is slow me down 1 turn.
Yep.
And that seems, if you resolve a stated stasis and I have an Oath in play, it just means that I'm just gonna keep chugging creatures at him like forever. So that seems pretty good. Therapies are good, that's obvious. The more interesting part is that for a short moment, I thought I was going to bring out Tombstone until I spoke to someone about it, and they were like, why? That seems really good when he counters other creatures. So apparently I forget what my own deck does sometimes.
Well, we were talking about it, and some of the chat thought about taking it out. We weren't sure. I mean, it's not very good if you go Tombstone Stairwell and then he goes Stasis. So, but
well, if yeah, okay, that's a very fair point. It's also not great if he has a stasis and I need to get up to 4 mana, right? So it has some really bad spots, but if you play like an attrition game early where he counters and bounces and counters and
Yeah.
tries to stay alive, and I get to resolve, like when I've shipped through with duresses and creatures, shipped through a bunch of counter spells. If I can resolve a like turn 5, turn 6 tombstone, where I reach 4 mana, if that resolves, and I get to make like 4 zombies for 2 turns even, like that's a lot of damage. They also, I guess that doesn't matter. I was gonna say they also come in new every turn, so they don't like stay tapped for stasis, but your lands stay tapped, so they die anyway. Unless you like have one untapped land and a ritual to pay for it, but that's it's very unlikely.
Fair enough.
I think I had some good draws here. I had the ritual start twice. I had a double ritual start against the Days there, so that was
Yeah.
And Ron, very unlucky in game 1 there, of course, with the lands. Our viewers may not know this, but you're one of the most consistent players in the Premodern Online Monthly, and I think you have the most top 8s. But if for whatever reason, or you're very unlucky. Like when we played Reanimator versus Sly, I think I like attacked you for 9 turns straight with just a Mog Fanatic while you waited to draw a card to kill me. So is there like an unlucky curse that you have in Premodern that we don't know about?
Probably. I had already mulliganed that hand once, and the hand had a Daze, a Stasis, Island, Forsaken City, a Gush, the 2-mana counter, Arcane Denial. So really, all I needed was 1 island.
yeah.
Just draw 1 island, and that hand is set. But it was not meant to be.
Mm-hmm.
The good news here on is what Flint is saying is if you have the most top 8s and you're an unlucky player, that must mean you're literally the most skilled player in the format. I think that's what
Exactly.
the math is out, so that's a pretty
Exactly.
good compliment.
And your record speaks to it. I mean, it's a bummer to see you go after going undefeated, right?
Mhm.
7 wins.
Yeah.
It's incredible, right? Like you crushed it during the series. So you're bowing out in the semis, but in terms of just overall record, I mean, everyone that you
brought
played
the
will
heat
attest that
big
you
time.
crushed it, dude.
Well, it was an absolute blast to play this. So good luck to you, Robin, in the
Thank you.
finals. And I can't wait to watch the next match.
All right.
Same.
All right.
Sure.
All right.
Congrats, Robin.
Y'all have a
See you
good
guys.
night.
All right.
Bye, guys.
Okay, so we I don't know if you want to ping the other players and see if because we're ahead of schedule given how quickly that those games went, but we might be able to start a little earlier than what our previously scheduled time was with Patrick and Michael. So in terms of what we have. Otherwise, if they need some time, then we'll just do our pregame with the decks and whatnot before they sit down. Do you want to do that instead?
We can do that. I'm just messaging them right now to see
Okay.
what their status is. It looks like Michael needs another 10 minutes, which is fine.
Okay,
So
that's fine.
We'll allow for that.
All right.
Maybe should we take just a short break real quick and then we'll come back and do our pregame stuff?
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do like a 5-minute break, and then no, we want to take the break when the players are sitting down, and that way, because otherwise
Okay,
it makes it easier for me. So we'll do the deck intro now. So let's go over to the decks that Patrick and Michael have available. So Patrick is the 2 seed. Is that correct?
I'm not sure how it shook out. Let me take a look here.
I believe that's the case. But yeah, so the
looks like Mike
Okay.
is the 2 seed.
okay,
Well, they're both tied, but it goes to match win.
whoever won head to head, and I
Um,
believe that was Patrick.
It was Patrick.
It was
So
because
Patrick-
because the burn against
Yep.
the blue white, yeah.
Yep.
So, so the first deck we have is the artifact burn or slide deck from Patrick, and I know he played it against Michael. Had he used it against other people? I can't remember. Can't remember him playing it earlier in the league. Do you remember?
I don't think so. I think that was the first and only time that we saw it. And it was a really, really, really good
Yeah,
match.
I do remember that match. Yeah. So we haven't seen this one too much in action, but I think that's partially because it's been banned quite frequently. The red decks of this format are definitely very consistent, and if your deck takes a while to win, then the red deck has a pretty good edge, just because a lot of the cards just can be really efficient, and if cards like Sulfuric Vortex go unanswered, then they just have a consistent source of damage and is really efficient. And then like even like Curse Scroll is a source where you can get multiple damage out of one card. But the differences with Patrick's version have the Black Vice and the Anka Mishra are the biggest changes. And the Black Vice definitely gives you an edge against decks like Blue White Landstill, which is one of the decks that Michael has available to him. Because the Landstill deck, just if that sneaks under their counter spells, if they don't have a disenchant, a lot of their cards are often in their hand and they're going to be taking damage. Also, Anka Mishra is a card that is pretty problematic for the blue-white deck because they're planning on playing so many lands. So that was the matchup that we did see between those two players, and it was very close. But Patrick, with some well-timed burn spells and pace of play, like when he picked his spots to fight, was pretty interesting. But he ended up taking that match. I think it was 2-1.
Yep.
So the green-white Oahtron. We saw Patrick play this. I think like
At
3
least
times.
twice.
Yeah, I was gonna say 3 times if I. But it is looking to either get out an Oath of Druids and trigger it to get either a Phantom Neshoba, Spike Weaver, or Spike Feeder in play. Otherwise, it kind of has a backup plan of just getting a lot of mana together with the Tron, the Urzatron, and then his Decree of Justice has become a lot more powerful. And then beyond that, the rest of the deck is a lot of just kind of like smoothing. There's a lot of these Barb Sextants and Chromatic Spheres and Sungrass Eggs, which help the mana, and they're kind of like they're a double-edged sword. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but they can hurt Patrick in some ways just because sometimes he'll draw these eggs, and he has to spend his turns either filtering through his deck or he just has to wait to draw the spell that he needs. So, but it does help him sometimes that he's able to move through his deck to get to the cards that he actually wants to draw, like the oaths and the decrees. So that is the green-white Tron deck. And then the last one is a deck that I haven't seen as much in my pre-modern experience, and so far the times that Patrick has played it has made this deck look really good. This is the blue-black zombie infestation deck, and it heavily relies on a zombie infestation being in play. And if it does, then there are a lot of synergies that go on with this deck. So the upper right card is Squee Goblin Labob, and that will just provide card advantage over the turns because he'll be able to discard either 2 Squees or squee another card to be making a 2/2 every turn. Or if the most common play pattern is Zombie Infestation, then Intuitioning for 3 Squeeze. So then you'll get a free 2/2 every turn, and then kind of like a 2/2.5, because every card you discard with the third Squee will make an additional 2/2. And so the rest of the cards are kind of they're light control-ish elements. I mean, there's Dazes and Mana Leaks, and then there are counter spells, but then there's some card draws with Gush and Accumulated Knowledge. And so it's really just looking to keep that zombie infestation in play and kind of ride it to victory. In the times that we have seen Patrick play it, the zombie infestation has been very timely. He's gotten it down, and the times that he hasn't had it removed, he's had a second one, or he's quickly able to get a backup copy, and the board control he's had really stays. He maintains the board presence with the zombie infestation, because I think if you don't have that zombie infestation right away, I think this deck could really lose board position and fall behind, because there really isn't any other way for it to catch up once it's behind. So.
I agree. He has had some really great draws, and he's a good player certainly, but he's had some stellar draws. And
Mhm.
when this deck does fire, it fires really well because it can continue to disrupt. It's got counter magic backup to prevent your opponent from stopping your horde, so to speak. And it's a cool deck with a lot of synergy.
Yep. So I now have the decks up for Michael. The Angry Ghoul deck is the one that's up. I feel like, I mean, I guess two people have this deck, but I feel like a lot of times we asked you, Flint, about this deck, but I guess that's kind of fitting because you kind of are the one who brought this into the pre-modern scene.
Yeah, it's a just an insanely fast and powerful deck. It is a little bit of a glass cannon, but certain draws can be more resilient than others. It struggles against Sly, but as we've seen, other than the artifact burn, there isn't really any Sly in this format, and so its other real enemy is control. Mike's version is a little different than the one that I ran. Instead of trying to be able to play the alternate kind of grindy match and potentially some reanimator angle, he goes with the Croson Cloud Scrapers, the 13/13 creatures, and then makes room for other cards in the deck to smooth out his draws, like 4 Limb Duel's Vault. And then he also runs, he doesn't run the Living Wish package, but he runs 4 Shallow Graves and 4 Duresses. So he chooses not to do Exhume. He goes with Shallow Grave. So he can either Shallow Grave in a Hermit Druid at the end of the opponent's turn and activate it, or even on his own, right? So you can get the haste from it before it's swords or bolted or whatever. And then he also has 8 discard spells. So there's the 4 Unmasks, which are traditional, or at least in the build that I put together. But he also adds the 4 Duresses in. And he and I have talked about the deck a lot. I've talked about this deck a lot with Jared as well. And like Crumble, for example, and Steely Resolve were suggestions that we had all discussed. But their versions are slightly different, and there are advantages to each and disadvantages. The disadvantage to Shallow Grave here is the flashing back of Cabal Therapy, because you typically sack your Hermit after you've activated your Hermit, and then you flash back a Cabal Therapy to take the swords to Plowshares or whatever it is they might have in their hand to stop your Ghoul. But he's just got so much disruption on the front end, more proactive with the duress, that I think it kind of makes up for it. You can win really fast with it, or if it gets disrupted, you can play some long games where you're just hoping to draw another Hermit Druid, like I think we saw. I think was it last week?
Yes, that was against Ron.
Yeah, but it's
Uh,
fun. It's fun to play. It's probably not fun to play against, like a lot of decks in the format, but it's fun to play, and it's got some cool interactions.
all right, I brought up the Elves deck, and so do you want to talk about the features of this green tribal deck?
Sure. We've seen more elves decks crop up in the monthlies recently. There are different takes on it. Michael's is very unique. Instead of the 8 or the package of 4 Overrun and 4 Biorhythm, he goes with the Overrun, but he also runs Coat of Arms instead of Biorhythm, and he also runs Natural Order, and he uses Natural Order to get a deranged Hermit out sooner rather than later, and then also for Tangle Wire to trip up the board. Tangle Wire is just very, very good in Elves decks. We've seen it time and time again. Jesse Laidlaw ran an Elves Tangle Wire. Um, what's the? Is it collective
Unconsciousness.
unconscious, where you draw a card for each creature you
Yeah.
control, and just had some crazy draws that we saw in the double elimination tournament during the spring fling last spring. But Michael's version here is really great. He also runs Wirewood Herald, so if an opponent has a sweeper, he can search for a Collar of the Claw and then play it, which is a really kind of a creative answer to board wiping strategies. And then out of the board, he has your standard naturalized package for artifacts and enchantments, which really tend to be the powerhouses of the format. More Callers of the Claw, your Tormod's Crypt, because most decks have to run them in their sideboard. There are too many graveyard strategies that are just too powerful. And then Winter Orbs against control, and then some Masticores against other creature decks. It's a pretty solid deck.
All right, and then blue white landstill. So we have Michael's version, which is a little bit different than the version that Ron brought. Do you want to talk about this one?
I do. How did you know?
Yeah.
um, yeah, so Michael runs 4 Absorb. It's a card that some land still players, myself included, would tend to avoid just because it can be hard to cast sometimes, especially if you're running your your man lands, your mistress factories, for example, or if you don't have the right combination of blue and white mana, you can get what's the word I'm looking for? Choked on certain colors at various points, and so it's really good against red. It's a good counter spell more generally against fast strategies. But he runs 4 of those, and he runs 3 Cunning Wish as well, and then he has a nice Cunning Wish package out of the board, so he can get another Swords to Plowshare. He can get a Funeral Pyre against graveyard strategies. Stifle, Hercules, Recalls, Capsize is just a brutal late game finisher against some decks. Um, Other than that, classic land still, looking to control the board long enough to establish a presence, keep the counter spells in hand, play the land stills, force the opponent to make the move while you attack in with man lands, and then he will eventually close the game out with the Decree of Justice, or perhaps that lone angel that he's got in his deck as well, the Exalted Angel.
All right, let's go over to the ban screen and try and make some predictions for the bans of the players. So I know last time they played, Patrick brought his burn deck while Michael had his landstill deck. I don't recall which decks were banned. Do you want to look that up quick?
Yeah, I'll take a peek right now.
So I'm thinking if I'm Patrick, I think I guess the situation is if I'm anticipating my burn deck getting banned, then I think the Hermit Druid is probably the one I'm most worried about. It just has a lot of explosive potential.
So last time, Mike banned Zombie Infestation,
Okay.
and Patrick banned the Hermit deck.
Okay. I think if I'm Michael, I think I would leave the Zombie Infestation, because if he bans the Hermit Druid, I would bring the Elves deck. I feel like the Elves deck would be able to, even if you get that Zombie Infestation in play, I feel like there's a lot of outs that you can like overrun, or I mean, I guess Coat of Arms is pretty awkward with Zombie Infestation, but what's his other payoff card? Is it? It's just
Elves?
yeah. I guess
It-
it's just really those two, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that wouldn't work as well as I guess I was thinking, but yeah, I don't know. What do you anticipate is going to happen?
I think Patrick is still going to ban Angry Hermit
I think so too.
because his decks can't respond to it very well. And then I think Michael may ban Burn.
I mean, that's kind of my gut reaction too.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we're gonna see. Burn's got game against Landstill. Those games were close, to be fair.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they're probably a lot closer than we think. But just given how things played out last time, and also the fact that Burn can kill a lot of elves as he's playing them out. Although elves might be able to go wide enough, he might run out of Burn. It might not actually be as bad of a matchup, but I do think that Burn probably has the most game against Landstill and elves.
All right, let's make the assumption that both Burn and Hermit Druid are banned. What decks are you thinking of bringing?
If I'm Michael, I think I still bring Landstill.
Yeah, I think so too. Like I think the risk of bringing the elf deck. I guess
I know.
I guess I've said that before, but then there are times that like the elf deck has just been really explosive. There have been times that I felt like it had been behind. I think it was against Mike Harris when he was playing the zoo deck, and it was kind of like, well, how is he gonna get out of this position? And I mean, I think it might have been a fortunate situation, but like there was some blocks and then like a Caller of the Claw, and then like an overrun, like, and he just like stole the game out of nowhere. So I think maybe I count the elf deck out a little bit, but I don't know. And also the thing is like the Oath deck that Patrick has, I mean, I guess maybe Spike Weaver is a little bit awkward for the elf deck, but if like one of the three chances it just is like the first one is just a spike feeder, that's not very scary at all. So
Right.
like maybe that's kind of something you need to look at and say like, okay, if he actually does have oath, then he still only has like two really good hits. And so it's like that one turn might be enough for you able to overrun and overpower Patrick afterwards.
Well,
I don't know.
and also Tangle Wire is just brutal, right? So if it's not a Spike Weaver and it's a a Phantom Neshoba or a feeder and Michael drops a Tangle Wire, right, and then taps Patrick out, um, then that makes things much harder for Patrick to interact. Now, granted, he could still oath again, right, because he
Yeah.
can stack his triggers.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think that a Tangle Wire that's unanswered really does slow Patrick down a fair amount, unless he gets some early eggs. So I do agree that the elves versus the oath deck is probably a little closer than we give elves credit for. But the reason why I think I pick Landstill even above and beyond that is because it has so many main deck answers for
That's
Patrick's two strategies.
sure.
Like he's running 3 Disenchant main. He's got all the counter spells. He's got Wrath of God for creatures to buy him time. And then is he running Dismantling Blow main, or is that Ron's deck?
There's three disenchants, and I think it's just one on the sideboard with the three
One on the
cunning
sideboard.
wishes.
Yeah. So I think he's got so much enchantment hate that I don't think he's definitely not worried about Oathtron, but against zombie infestation, he's got hate against the infestations themselves, and then can clean up whatever creatures may have found their way to the battlefield.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing that Landstill would be worried about Oathtron is a bigger decree of justice from the Tron lands getting set up. But there are ways to disrupt that with Dust Bowl. So
Yep, he's got the 2 Dust Bowl main deck, which is certainly quite good. But you're right. If the games do go along, and didn't we see that in one of the matchups where Patrick was playing against a control deck? I don't remember who it was. Maybe it was Ron.
it might have been.
And he I think in game 2 he actually did get Tron and managed to out decree Landstill. So that definitely is his out. Um, but I do like the Landstill against Infestation and Tron better than Elves. But maybe I'm just a little biased there.
So which deck would do you think Patrick would bring against if these are the bands? What would Patrick bring?
I think he would bring the Infestation deck.
Okay, I was thinking he'd bring the Tron deck, but
Okay.
uh, I mean it's just the infestation deck. Like if you're assuming you're playing against the Landstill deck, it's kind of like you have to deal with the counter spells and the disenchants, which seem kind of tricky. There's not, I don't know. It seems like plus even if you do get the zombie infestation for going for a while, there's still like Wrath of Gods from
Yeah.
the Landstill deck. So I don't know.
Very true. Very true. It may be worse. And also, Infestation against Elves probably isn't that great of a matchup for Infestation.
Yeah.
But I think because he's played Tron versus Landstill in the past, I think he's going to be worried about that, and he's also going to be worried about, and he's also probably not going to put Michael on Elves, um,
Sure.
because Michael's probably thinking, well, maybe Michael's not, but I mean, I'm guessing Michael's thinking I don't want to run Elves into an Oath of Druids. Um, so I'm guessing that Patrick is going to go with Zombie Infestation, although I think you can make an argument that the Oathtron may be his best deck.
Okay. So let's take a quick intermission as we get our players set up. They should be able to be ready now. So everyone who's here, just sit tight because we're just gonna get them settled in. Probably go through one cycle of our little ads for our friends of the show, and then we'll be back. So it won't be long. We will be back shortly. Okay, so we are back. We have our matchup between Patrick and Michael, and they are just shuffling up. We already did our intro for the decks and our predictions. So, Flint, you can let them know that whenever they're ready, they can start it off.
All right, I have sent the message.
Okay, so Patrick is the top seed, so he gets to choose a play. Looks like he's keeping 7. That's always a good feeling. Is Michael mulliganing, or is that his whole hand? Is that one card, or?
I mean, I think it's his whole hand.
Okay. I don't see much like depth to it, so or height, so it's very cleanly stacked if that's the case. Oh, I guess maybe all right, maybe when I look at like on my other computer screen I can tell looks a little more 3D.
All right.
Okay. You did send him a message, right?
I did, yeah. Let
Okay.
me just... Oh, it looks like Michael's getting up for a second.
Oh, maybe dad duties or something. So all right, let's fill the time. So people are hoping, one person's hoping to see Oathtron. Someone said anything but Oathtron, so we can't please everyone, unfortunately.
Okay.
So, but yeah, I guess in terms of Patrick being on the play, obviously that is an advantage that you take any day of the week. But I feel like, especially if the Hermit Druid deck is banned, that I guess the Elves deck does want to be on the play. I was going to say all the other decks, like Patrick's decks don't seem... The Burn deck would like to be on the play, but his other 2 decks don't seem to mind that much being on the draw. But
So I just checked the bans. Do you want to know what they were?
sure.
So Michael banned Burn
Okay.
and Patrick banned Land Still.
Interesting. So, do you think that... Because Michael's success rate with the Hermit Druid deck he's played it at least twice, right? And I believe he lost both times. Is that correct?
Didn't he win one like super fast, or was that Jared?
Jared won one really quick, I know. Because Michael lost a tight one to Ron, and was it against... I can't remember who he played, but I felt like he lost another time with it. Because I believe it was the time where he accidentally like milled himself. I see hands. Is Patrick now away? What are they waiting for?
I think they're waiting for me to message the right group.
Oh. Okay. Do you have like a second Premodern Showdown series group that you're messaging?
Jared had messaged us, and I automatically just opened Messenger, and that was the one that came up.
All right, so we see a swamp. So
Sorry, folks, my bad.
that would leave us with the zombie infestation.
All right, it's infestation versus hermit.
So what does it mean if he leads with swamp? Because he has dazes in his deck. Like, is there any reason to play swamp over island?
Let me look. Backlists.
And then we do see a Llanowar Waste, so that would indicate the Angry Ghoul deck.
Yeah, I don't see a reason, and maybe he just didn't have the island.
Yeah, that would make sense, but yeah, I was just trying to figure it out. Okay, so...
Oh.
Cabal Therapy named Hermit Druid and got 2 of them, so that was definitely really good. So
yeah.
But Mike did have the option to unmask pitching Limdall's Vault. I mean, I think you most likely would save it for the turn you're going to cast the Hermit Druid because of counter magic, but
Yeah.
so now
So that's why he didn't play anything. He probably didn't have the island, but didn't want to run Cabal Therapy into a blind hand. He's no Robin Lund, I'll tell you that much. Yeah, and Robin calls it, so he's going to reanimate his Hermit.
Okay. So let's bring this guy up. So he's taken 3 damage, I believe. 1 to cast the. Oh no. Has he only taken 2? We have a life. Yeah, 18 to 20. Okay. Yeah. So the Hermit Druid's in play.
And it's live.
And so he just has to worry about counter spells. But the thing we talked about is there is no Cabal Therapy available for Michael, so he's pretty much has to wait until he draws another either a redundant reanimation piece. I guess he could Corrosion Reclamation at some point.
He's going to get Hermit beats for 1, putting Patrick down to 19. And then Patrick's going to fetch down to 18.
I'm playing with the text. Hold on. Well, it seemed like the L was cut off, so I don't know if it's hard to tell. Okay. Okay, where are we at for lives? We're at 18 apiece.
18 all.
Okay. So let me catch up with the card fetcher. I'm falling behind on everything. So the Hermit Druid. So he just attacked with it?
Yep.
Okay.
You can't activate it right now.
You're just saying because of counter spells?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he needs to draw either the Corrosion Reclamation, he needs to draw Duress, he needs to draw Shallow Grave. And in the meanwhile, he's just going to be waiting, right?
Mm-hmm. Or
So,
discard spell would work too.
yes. But as time goes on, if it's like an unmask and he's paying the regular cost for it, like Patrick could just, if he has multiple counter spells.
So there's the unmask. Exiling 1 of the 2 ghouls in the deck.
Okay.
It's a pretty bad one to draw.
Yes, that's not ideal. Okay. Ooh. So the Chain of Vapor is a card that we didn't really talk about of how it interacts in this matchup, but it definitely is a card that's difficult for Michael to deal with. So he's taking Counterspell. Okay. So how is he gonna beat a Chain of Vapor?
That's a good question.
He's activating the ghoul.
Does he run Safekeeper in main deck? Does he have a Safekeeper and like a Reanimate?
The Cabal Therapy is not in his list. I don't know if there's a Safekeeper. This seems... I'm confused.
So he's going to run Corrosion Reclamation. And so in response, Patrick's going to sack and go down to 16.
Okay.
We get an Island and Gush here.
I guess if you're doing it now, I guess... Because if this Corrosion Reclamation... I mean, has he announced what he's targeting? I don't know. Because this gets flashback. I mean, what would be the hardest cards for Patrick to deal with? I mean, one of them is going to be a reanimation spell. Is he worried about like the other one being like a duress?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's probably what Michael goes for, right? Is just or reanimate in a duress.
Okay. Oh,
Oh,
see a
goodness.
daze. So now unless Michael has a shallow grave in his, oh no, he's just dead. So yeah,
When did he do that? Was that end of
and
turn?
a turn. But yeah, but he was casting the corrosion
From the graveyard.
reclamation. Yep, at the end of turn. So
Yeah. So
um,
he's done.
yep. So if that gets countered, that's exiled. He doesn't have a second one, and he dies because he tried to draw a card with the empty library. All right.
All right. So sideboard. What are we bringing in, Michael?
Let me pull up these decks, and then I will give you. I think Tormod's Crypt is probably coming in.
Oh yes. I think 3 Tormod's Crypt and 2 Stifle. Oh god, Edict is good too.
Yeah, I mean it's it's fair. I don't know if I mean like it gets Hermit Druid. It doesn't get like the Suture goal because you have to assume that the Hermit Druid's in play. But it seems like a decent way to answer a Hermit Druid that sneaks into play.
Mm-hmm.
I'm probably taking out Wonder. It's probably
Yeah.
the first card I would take out. I know he's taken out Accumulated Knowledge before against decks that he felt like worked pretty fast. I mean, I guess that's reasonable.
So how many do you absolutely bring in? So I think you definitely bring in the 3 Crypt.
Yep.
And you definitely bring in the 2 Stifle. Right? We can agree there. Or no, you don't bring in the Stifle.
You
right?
don't need
'Cause
to bring in
can't
a Stifle.
Trigger.
You can
Yeah,
stifle.
it
You can
does
stifle
screw
a
it.
Dragon Breath, but that only buys you a turn.
Yeah.
You could stifle a Druid activation, but that doesn't really do anything. The other cards that you stifle, yeah, I don't think. I think I would bring in. My gut is to take out 4 into a. Is Duress a card you? I think you want Duress. Take out 4
Yeah.
Accumulate Knowledge and 1 Wonder, and bring in 3 Torment Script and 2 Diabolic Edict. That's my gut.
Okay. All right.
So the Angry Ghoul deck. So some number of crumbles have to come in.
Yep.
I think I would want the other Corrosion Reclamation, and then
Yeah, absolutely.
I think I do want some number of Defense Grid.
Yeah, I mean, you have to worry about Chain of Vapor, but I think, so still a resolve, but Defense Grid just kind of does that in a more succinct way.
Sure.
So I think he brings in the 3 grids, 1 Reclamation, and maybe 2 crumbles. He's got to be careful how many cards he boards in versus out. He probably boards out the Unmasks. What else does he board out? So it's 4. He's boarding in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 maybe. So he boards out 4 Unmasks, and then he also boards out maybe 1
Like a Worldly Tutor.
Yeah, maybe 1 Worldly Tutor and a
lo-
land.
or a Lotus Petal. Yeah.
I'd probably take out a land. I think that's how I would do it, but I don't know if it's right.
Yeah. So someone was asking about no therapy doesn't seem right to me. The reason why he doesn't have therapy, though, you actually probably could play 1 therapy and instead of a duress. The reasoning is because with Shallow Grave, it returns the top creature card of your library, and most of the times you would be flashing back up all therapy would be to clear the way for a Suture Ghoul to come into play. So you'd be sacking your Hermit Druid. And if you were to do that sequence, then your Hermit Druid would be the top creature card of your graveyard, and that would not be the card you would want to Shallow Grave. I mean, I guess I still can see it being reasonable because let's just say you are going to be reanimating, then you still could go for that line. And the opportunity cost, like having 1 Cabal Therapy instead of a Duress doesn't seem like that worse. You might miss some of the time, but at least, I mean, like it seems like about half the time, if you're going for that reanimate instead of Shallow Grave, the Cabal Therapy really could come into play. But
yeah, the Shallow Grave is it's more there for the Hermit Druid than it is the Ghoul. It's really designed to make sure you can get that Hermit Druid activation against removal. So it's really good against red, and it's good against black removal spells like Vendetta and things like that. It's not good against Swords to Plowshares, because if they just have a Swords to Plowshares, they're just going to wait and sword your Ghoul. So it's a bit of a gambit against some of the other decks that the Hermit Druid can struggle against game one at least. And it's, I'd be curious. I don't know how many times Michael's played with the Shallow Grave now.
Mhm.
What he thinks about it in terms of how useful it's been in those matchups.
I
But
mean-
it's very good against red and black.
Yeah, it seems fine, but then also it just seems like you still could just put one Cabal Therapy in for a Duress, and then you still like the time, because if you're not going for it, then okay, it doesn't matter. You're not. If you're doing the Shallow Grave, then sure, you just don't Cabal Therapy, you don't flash it back. That's fine. But then at least the times when it does matter, you have it available to you.
Absolutely.
So I don't know.
And it's funny with Limdual's Vault in the deck, you might be able to make the argument that you could run, some combination of Shallow Grave and Exhume. Exhume doesn't matter as much, except for when you're against aggressive decks and your life total's getting low,
Yeah.
and it's hard to reanimate. And also against targeted graveyard removal like Funeral Pyre or Coffin Purge, Exhume's much better.
Mm-hmm.
Looks like the players are still shuffling up.
So I mean, I would think that if one of the decks gets better, I think it's Patrick. I mean, I feel like Tormod's Crypt is just, it slows down the Angry Ghoul deck pretty considerably. Also, Patrick won a game without Zombie Infestation.
He did.
So
He did.
he didn't even deal any damage to Michael.
Yeah, I mean, Michael's chances definitely still do improve with some of the answers, but the deck doesn't fire on all cylinders the way it does game one after
Yeah.
you start bringing in your sideboard cards. It's one of the problems that I found with the deck when I run it as well is I have all these great sideboard cards, but you still have to pick and choose what you decide to go with. And I think I alluded to this last time we talked, but I've actually modified my Druid sideboard a little bit. So even since the times when Jared and Michael and I have talked about it, so I'm no longer running a sideboard similar to this.
All right. Does that mean you'll be playing this deck again soon?
I don't know. Who's to say?
Yes. All right.
Now I have to wait like 3 months.
I was say, who's your first opponent for the double elimination match?
Yeah, right.
He is switching decks.
Somebody message that player right now. Hashtag Hermit Alert.
Yep.
It looks like Patrick has taken a mulligan here. He's about to look at his, I think, second hand. I'm just gonna
Okay.
message them and let them know that they can start whenever
Sure.
they're ready.
Are you sure you're gonna message them?
I'm gonna message everyone in Messenger
Okay.
just to be safe.
All right. It looks like only one card's going to the bottom, so I think only one mulligan took place.
All right.
All right. Llanowar Wastes takes a damage to cast Duress. What do we
my.
see? We see a Duress, a counterspell, a Duress, a counterspell, a Swamp, and a Polluted Delta.
It's a hand of twos. 2 Duress,
Yes.
2 counterspells,
And 2 lands.
2 lands. There goes the first counterspell.
So, do you think... I'm just trying to think if there's ever a spot where you
Duress.
take
immediately.
if you take the Duress. But
Oh wow. So what, he takes the defense grid here?
I think you have to.
Yeah.
It just makes your... See, that's where I might take the... I mean, I guess your defense grid. Because you might be in a spot where you could... If you took Duress took 1 Duress, then Patrick plays a Duress, he's pretty much obliged to take defense grid. And there might be a situation where you can Limdol's Vault and then try and set up another defense grid and just trap those counterspells in his hand. But I don't know, maybe that's a little too optimistic.
So probably just gonna play the river and pass here.
Yes. I mean, you could fire off Limdol's Volt.
Okay. So that means that last card may or may not be good. Maybe it's a reanimation spell?
He did draw the lovely Dragon's Breath. That's a card you always want to see in your opening hand, right?
That's rough. Sorry, the background's throwing you off there, Jared. I do have my co-commentator with me today. This is Flint. I don't know if you've ever met him.
Is he actually named Flint?
Yeah, yes.
All right.
G.I. Joe named Flint. Yeah.
Would you have gotten it otherwise?
Yeah, I don't know. Flint was cool back in the cartoon. But not as cool as Snake Eyes or Storm Shadow.
Yeah, this is way over my head. I never
Or
got into.
Cobra Commander.
Okay.
Also very cool.
So what is the life total of Mike? Is that 15?
Yeah,
I
he's
think
at
it's
50.
15. All right. So this is a second duress, right?
Yep, absolutely.
I would take Steely Resolve. I would not take that Dragon Breath. That's actually almost kind of risky because it's like the Dragon Breath in his hand is pretty bad. Like it going into the graveyard really actually could have bit Patrick. So
Yeah.
Oh,
Second Steely Resolve.
what creature type is he naming?
I think he names the ghoul.
You could, I mean, you're being serious, right?
Yeah, I mean serious.
Yeah. So just, but there's only 2 Chain of Vapor, right? I mean, I guess that's the only spell that targets, right? And because it's Diabolic Edict, otherwise in counter spells.
Yeah.
So Steely Resolve, I don't know, just seems really narrow, doesn't it?
It's just so good against decks that play like a dedicated targeted removal spell.
Yeah, but aren't there only 2 copies?
2 copies of what?
Chain of Vapor. Like, what are the other cards that target in Patrick's list?
He's got 2 Chain of Vapors. That's it.
Yeah, I don't think I'd bring in Steely Resolve. Like, I would think I'd rather just have Unmask.
I would rather lean on Defense Grid.
Well, yeah, I'd have that first, but we already saw
Yeah.
those. All right, I'm missing life totals. And when I say I mean Flint is.
I was looking at the list for you. Gosh. 13 to 18.
Okay. I guess we didn't get a confirmation of what creature type was named, but
We did not.
I
We'll
mean,
ask him.
I guess dragon.
It was oof.
Oof. Ooh. Here we have 3 Torment Scripts, I believe.
Zombie was named.
Oh man. All right. Here's a new version of Torment Script. I don't think I can. So if this sits in play, I mean, there's still Crumble is the card.
Yep.
So.
All right.
All right, and we do see. We do see the Hermit Druid come down.
One card in Mike Reynolds' hand? Just the Dragon Breath?
I believe so. I think he's just been playing. I think the second Steely Resolve was off the top. Where did the other Steely Resolve go?
There's the edict. He did bring it in.
Didn't one of the Steely Resolves get discarded? Was there a second Hermit Druid that... Because the top card was a Hermit Druid before this one died.
There was a duress.
Yeah, Duress took a Steely Resolve, but then was there a Hermit Druid that got cast? Because there's 2 Hermit Druids in that graveyard.
I don't know.
I don't remember what happened to that. All right, so we are resolving a Limdol's Vault, and we will just watch Michael's life tick down.
So he's got to be careful here. If he gets too low, then Reanimate becomes a dead card.
Yes. Alliances. I do have this one. All right. What is going on in this art? Is it just like a library? Can you tell?
The new version?
No, the old one. The old one will come up soon.
Yeah, it looks like a vault of various spoils, and there's books and other junk in there.
It's a vault. I mean, you could have a vault that is
Thanks,
like is maybe kept a little bit better. Like maybe if you have some pride in your vault, then probably Limdol doesn't. There's no Flint GI Joe in his vault, so I don't know.
Yeah, I always thought it was, I always misread it and thought it was Limdul's valet, and I was like, oh, it's a valet. That doesn't look anything like a valet. It's like when you watch Saffron Olive's stream and he mispronounces cards all the time, and then it just becomes a running joke.
Yeah, sure.
like what was it? Was it Rat Bugler or something like that instead of Burglar Rat? There's Bugler Rat. Or something.
Oh yeah. I thought you were gonna say something about the Russian River.
I don't know. That's our thing. All right. Duress here.
Oh no.
Okay.
The dragon's breath has found where he wanted to be.
Robin checked. There was a hermit that was countered before the second one resolved.
Okay.
Thanks, Robin.
I guess I don't remember that. I don't remember that happening, but okay. I was thinking that Steely Resolve would have been the top card, the one that got duressed, but it must have been cast after that. So here we see, yes. And I mean, at what point? I mean, he's only at 9, so it's like, I don't know what those 2 cards in his hand are, but getting a 2/2 in play isn't bad.
No, it's not.
And especially if one of those cards is Squee. All right.
Duress.
Reanimate. But this is only targeting a Hermit Druid, correct?
Correct. There's no...
So, okay, if you let this resolve, then he gets a Hermit Druid. But then you have to be worried about Crumble, right? Because if he crumbles the Torment's Crypt, then he activates it and then can kind of go off.
Yep.
But it might depend. Like, if Patrick has counter spells, he could say, like, yeah, that's fine, because you need to both have a Crumble that resolves and then have either a reanimation spell in your hand or have a Corrosion Reclamation resolve. So
and it has to be a shallow grave for the ghoul now too.
Okay. Pat just looking at his 3 cards. I was gonna say his pocket pairs, but looks like he's got a 3rd card now. A duress. That's what I felt like. I don't know. Oracle Ball Therapy.
If you have it, you cast. Well, there was a Limdul's Vault, so Michael may have stacked his deck in a way to avoid the discard spells, to play the cards in a sequence to where he's not going to be left with something in his hand to get disrupted.
Yeah, and keeping your cards in hand from Patrick's perspective is something to discard a zombie infestation. Just firing off a duress could reduce your clock in the future.
90s MTG with the raid. Welcome. We are in our second semifinal match. We've got Zombie Infestation against Hermit Druid. And the zombie infestation is up a game. Welcome. Welcome, welcome.
How do we cool down Nightbot? It's yelling at.
I don't know. Our Nightbot's out of control here.
I like all the emotes. Keep spamming
Me too.
emotes.
We're we're rookies when it comes to this, so
So,
we'll figure it out, or you can tell us in chat.
manage moderation settings.
All right, so it looks like Patrick's discarding two to put a zombie into play here at the end of at Michael's turn. So he's going to start to put some pressure on that 7-point life total. Hey, welcome CS Magic Altars. Got a pretty interesting game here. So he swings it with the zombie. Mike Arnold goes down to 5. So we need to see Crumble, Shallow Grave, right?
Yeah, and the time is ticking because with zombie possession in play and him only at 5 now, there's not a lot of time. And like if Patrick draws any amount of like counter spells, then it's gonna be really difficult for Michael to do anything.
Coming back in. Putting Michael to 3. So now we're going to see the duress that he telegraphed earlier.
I feel like I might just want a 2/2. Oh, all right. So there's 2 Steely Resolves, a Shallow Grave, and a Suture Ghoul.
Get that Shallow Grave out of here.
Yes. That was also another way to interact. If Tormod's Crypt goes for an activation and you can respond with a Shallow Grave.
Mm-hmm.
If you had multiple of them. Oops, sorry. 3 life. So it's pretty much now or never, right?
You can always block.
No.
Oh, he's scooping him up.
Yeah, because
So
if he made another zombie at the end of turn, then he'd block 1, and then he'd go to 1, and he can't really cast any of his spells at that point, I don't think. So
no. So that's a 2-0, which means Patrick will be facing Robin in the finals on Wednesday. Let's unmute the players
Sure.
and
yes.
it's the night of the undead according to Robin.
Yeah, I unmuted those guys.
Yes, you're both
All right.
unmuted on
Hey
stream.
guys.
How's it going?
Good. So let's walk through in terms of, let's start at the ban process in terms of what you guys were thinking, because the last time you guys played, the matchup was Burn against Landstill, and you guys both banned both of those decks this time, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So do you?
I think.
Yep, go ahead. I was gonna say, do you want to walk through your thought process on the bans?
Yeah, I think Patrick is very well matched up against me. Because even like the first time around, it's really difficult for me to kind of pin down like which deck can I bring to the table that he doesn't have like another backup deck that's really going to beat me. Because the zombie infestation, yeah, he's got a lot of answers for this deck. I think he has got a lot of answers for Landstill as well. So kind of hard for me to bring that in, as well as against Oath. Like Oath has a lot of answers again for the Hermit Druid, but he's also got a lot of answers in that deck for Elves. So obviously if I knew that Patrick was going to bring in Zombie Infestation, Elves I think has a little bit better of a chance right there, but it's just so hard. His decks I think are very well matched up against even the Burn. Burn is good against blue-white. It's going to be good against Elves. So it's very difficult for me to ban a deck and then to end up in a situation where I am guaranteed a favorable matchup.
Yeah, and I think that I had this kind of pattern of just banning combo decks throughout the whole tournament, and for this last match, I kind of just wanted, I did a few few hands of Angry Hermit, and I was like, you know what, I think I've got a few decks that can handle Angry Hermit or just kind of hold it back. So I kind of just said, well, I don't want to play Landstill again. Lancel has way too many answers. It's the best deck in the format for a reason, or one of the best decks in the format for a reason. I'm just take that out and see what happens.
All right. So those are what were the sideboard cards that you brought in, Patrick? So I see the edicts, the crypts, and what's the other card?
And it's 3 annuls. So
Okay.
I know that Michael was between the null rods and the fence grids. I mean, those things would shut me off. And if he was going first in game 2, which he was, I think that a null in my starting hand was the best way to
Okay.
try to live.
And so, Michael, you brought in a bunch of cards. What cards are you able to take out to bring in all those sideboard cards?
Yeah, so I took off like the worldly tutors, thinking about it, like I really like he has so many answers that going for like the speed of worldly tutor just didn't seem as worth it, as much, again, took out like one lotus petal right there. Unmasks, because I got other kind of ways to be able to disrupt him right there, and I didn't want to go too low on cards, give up a lot of other stuff. Shallow Graves, because of course Shallow Grave is there in order to deal with like targeted removal. But again, Patrick wasn't going to be dealing with too much of that. I just figured I was going to go as resilient as possible. And unfortunately, I just did not end up on the good side. My Limdal's Vault, especially like that last time, the second Limdal's Vault, which I did, I really had to take something which was like, okay, like this might work, but I was running like into life total with, between the pain lands and everything, that I really don't feel that I could have risked another couple, and being in a position where I could actually win the game with my lands.
Mm-hmm.
So we were talking about the Steely Resolve once we saw him in game 2, and I didn't have Patrick's list up, but the only cards we could think of were 2 Chain of Vapor. Are there other cards that interacts with?
That's the primary reason why I brought him in with like the Chain of Vapors, just dealing with that. Thinking out of it, it should probably just be like 2 Steel Resolve. At that point, I saw all 4 of them that game between drawing them and the Limdal's Vaults.
Sure.
So that's probably, it should have been at least 1 less Steel Resolve and 1 more Crumble. At that point, obviously, like if one of the Steel Resolves, which you saw in my hand, was a Crumble, I could have very well won the game. So that is just poor preparation on my part. So I totally take the blame for that and not the Hermit Druid deck. But I think that's a really tough matchup. Combo decks, historically have a very hard time dealing with aggro control.
Yeah.
Because they put you under that clock and that pressure, but they have enough disruption to kind of do it. Whereas, with a traditional control deck, sometimes you're just able to out-muscle their control elements. You can't do that with aggro control.
So Patrick, when you cast that duress and then the only legal target was Dragon's Breath, how did that feel?
I honestly, I had another duress sitting in my hand, and I was like, Jesus Christ, like how long do I hold this thing for? Because I don't know how kind of 4D chess Michael is playing.
Yeah, because the first time he dodged it because he had Steely Resolve in his hand.
Yeah.
And we kind of chuckled because we were like, oh, that would have been bad if he had to take the Dragon's Breath. That was the only card. And then eventually it just ended up getting fired off when there was another blank and it was just a gemstone mine. So, because, that card's definitely not very good in his hand and it's definitely a lot better in the graveyard. So,
I think the thing I wondered most about was the intuition that I casted midway through the second game of, do I go for an annul or do I go for Tormod's Crypt?
Okay.
I think those are really, or even... I think I could have done Chain. Oh, I couldn't even do Chain of Vapors.
You only have 2, right?
Yeah. So my biggest problems were, those things. So I went for the Tormod's Crypt, and I was terrified that he would Limdul's Vault into a Null Rod.
Sure.
And I could have sworn that was what he put on top.
Okay.
But,
yeah. I did not do proper sideboarding. So, but yeah, props to Patrick. I definitely have never heard Patrick swear so much as when he duressed away by the dragon.
It wasn't hitting the Dragon's Breath. It was the fact that there was a land on the top of your Limdul's Vault pile.
Fair enough. Well, you guys, really evenly matched coming into the semifinal in terms of your ranks. Also, the last time you guys played, it's super close matches. I think you've shown the viewers that you're good players. We've had a couple pitfalls. We won't mention the decking incident, Michael, but otherwise, oh, excuse me. Oh, oops. But otherwise, really good matches. It was really fun watching both of you play. I think the decks you brought were very interesting and diverse, and it's been fun. So thank you to you both for participating. Obviously, good luck to Patrick. Better luck next time, Michael. But it's been a lot of fun watching you guys play.
All right, can we see zombies versus zombies in one of the final matches?
Maybe.
Maybe.
Good Halloween theme right there.
Absolutely.
Okay. All right. Thanks, guys. Congratulations, Patrick.
Yeah.
Have a good night.
All right.
See you on Wednesday, Patrick.
So, Flint, do you want to talk about now that we have our final set? So it will be Robin against Patrick. Do you want to talk about how the finals works? Because it is a little bit different than how we've done the rest of our matches.
Yeah, definitely. So for those of you still sticking around, the finals is going to be a bit of a gauntlet. Basically, the two players, so Patrick and Robin, will get to ban one of the other players' decks the same way we've been doing week after week. Then they'll select which deck they want to play from their remaining two decks. They'll come to the table, they'll play their first best of three match, and then they will select their other non-banned deck to play a second best of three match. At the end of those two matches, if one player has won both matches, then they are the champion. If it's a 1-1 tie, they will then have to select their banned decks and play a third best of three match. So we could see 9 games on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It could be as many as 4 games. It could be as many as 9. But it's definitely going to be a pretty intense gauntlet that the players are going to be put through in order to be crowned the overall victor.
Actually, I'll have to correct you.
Oh God, I messed it up.
We potentially could play an unbound number of games. There is a Shepherd of Rot, and that can cause a draw. So
okay.
we could keep going and keep going and keep going.
Right.
So we might
Fair
not
enough.
ever end. So
Fair enough.
an unlimited amount of potential games. So
It is possible.
yep. All right. So we would like to thank everyone who's been tuning in this entire series, tuning in tonight, whether you're just stopping by tonight or have been here the whole way. We want to thank you. Thank you, 90s MTG, for the raid. Thank you for all the followers and the subscribers. Thank you to all our contestants who have really provided a lot of entertainment for all of us with a lot of creative deck brewing and really showcasing the pre-modern format. So we started with 8 and now we're down to the final 2, and we'll be crowning a victor on Wednesday. So I'm definitely really excited. It's a little bit bittersweet, but it's kind of cool just to finally get to say like that one person took down the first Premodern Showdown series. So all right, is there anything else you wanted to add, Flint, before we said goodbye?
Just the same old. Thanks to all the players for playing. I agree. Bittersweet is a nice way to put it. It's awesome to see it come down to a championship, but it is sad for it to kind of be ending. I feel like you and I both got to know everyone in the Showdown series pretty well through our various group chats and also through the questionnaires that they filled out, and it's been really fun. So it'll be sad to see that go.
Mm-hmm.
Also, thank you to all the other folks who are promoting pre-modern content. So if you haven't checked out the pre-modern online monthly group yet on Facebook, please do so. Tune into 90s MTG, tune in to the Mythic Society, play if you have Magic Online. It's a really nice way to get involved in the format as well. And listen to the Premodcast if you want to hear more about pre-modern, or all things considered if you want to hear about pre-modern and old school more generally.
Mm-hmm. All right, so that will conclude our semifinals for the night. And stay tuned, and we will be back on Wednesday for the conclusion of our first series, and we will figure out who will be the champion, whether it'll be Robin. He's kind of the dark horse since he kind of just snuck into the top 4, and now he's in the finals against Patrick. All right, so take care, everyone.
Bye, everybody.